She's quite useless, entirely dependent on me, the husband remarked to his guests during his Jubilee celebration, while his wife was occupied with serving everyone. However, the merriment was short-lived. When Lena commenced her celebratory speech, a hush fell over the assembly. Before we proceed, kindly indicate which country you are viewing this from. Enjoy the narrative. Lena would awaken long before the sun on occasions such as this, when the entirety of the holiday preparations fell upon her shoulders, sleep yielding to a gnawing apprehension. This day marked Victor's 50th birthday, an event he had long anticipated as another opportunity to showcase his prosperity and significance. She rose silently, endeavoring not to rouse Victor, who slumbered peacefully beside her. Donning a robe, Lena slipped out of the bedroom and into the house, her path leading her to the kitchen. A detailed itinerary, penned in her precise script, was affixed to the refrigerator. Procure the cake, confirm the grocery delivery, adorn the venue, greet the caterers, and contact the attendees. The list seemed interminable. Lena set the kettle to boil and began to lay the table, arranging a pristine white tablecloth and gleaming crystal glasses. The silverware shimmered as the sun reached its zenith. Soon, the aroma of freshly baked goods filled the air, Lena having personally baked several pies using her grandmother's cherished recipe, which had always been a crowd pleaser. While they cooled, she attended to the living room's adornment with ornaments, garlands, and flowers, each element chosen with meticulous care. Victor roused himself closer to midday, emerging from the bedroom in an exceptionally cheerful disposition, exuding an aura of self-assurance and smug satisfaction. "Well, is everything in order?" he inquired, surveying the living room. "Yes, almost," Lena replied. "The cake will arrive shortly, and the catering is en route." "Excellent. The paramount concern is that everything is flawless. Today I must make a profound impression," Victor declared, adjusting his tie before a mirror. Guests began to arrive, their chatter and laughter filling the house, a palpable sense of conviviality growing. Lena flitted between the kitchen and the dining area, ensuring everyone had refreshments and appetizers. She overheard fragments of conversations, predominantly focusing on Victor's accomplishments, his business acumen, and his influence. No one mentioned her. She was merely a shadow in her husband's orbit, an unobtrusive homemaker. Some of the relatives, particularly Victor's side, regarded Lena with disdain. They viewed her as a mere domestic figure, incapable of anything beyond household chores and child-rearing. They considered her fortunate to have Victor's support. Lena caught her sister-in-law Svetlana's remark. Without him, she'd be utterly lost. Lena attempted to dismiss such pronouncements, having grown accustomed to such condescending discourse and humiliating appraisals. Victor, meanwhile, was the focal point of attention, graciously accepting congratulations and elaborating on his triumphs and prospective ventures. Lena observed him from a distance, a growing sense of resentment and disappointment simmering within her. Yet he had never once acknowledged her contribution to his life, acting as if his achievements were solely his own, with no bearing on her involvement. At a certain juncture, Victor approached a cluster of guests, including his long-standing associates and business partners. Placing an arm around one of them, he proclaimed loudly, "You know, folks, if it weren't for me, Lena would have been on the streets long ago. To be blunt, she's quite useless and lives off my dime, which is more than enough for her." Lena stood nearby, privy to his every word. A wave of mortification washed over her, but she suppressed it. She refused to let him perceive her vulnerability or to let him break her spirit. Taking a deep breath, Lena composed herself. Just then, Andre, an old family confidant, a successful entrepreneur, and a long-term associate of Victor's, approached her. He studied Lena intently before quietly remarking, "Lena, don't take it too personally. Victor simply doesn't comprehend the gem he has beside him." Lena offered a faint smile in return. She was aware of Andre's consistent respect and empathy towards her. He recognized her not merely as a homemaker, but as an intelligent and capable woman. "Thank you, Andre," she whispered. "You can always rely on me," Andre responded. "Now go and show them all what you're truly capable of." A veneer of forced gaiety and insincere smiles permeated the gathering. Victor, seemingly oblivious to the escalating tension, continued to make barbed remarks towards Lena. His jokes grew increasingly venomous, masked by a pretense of good-natured jesting. The prevailing sentiment among those present was that if the house didn't burn down along with her, perhaps due to her absent-mindedness, anything could happen. Most of the guests were colleagues. Victor burst into laughter, and Lena felt a flush creep up her neck, convinced that all eyes were fixed solely upon her, a spectacle of ridicule. She silently placed a bottle on the table, avoiding direct gazes. "Come now," a voice attempted to smooth things over. One of the guests, Alexander, Victor's second in command, added, "Lena, you're doing a fine job. The house is immaculate. You always keep it so well." He dismissed his own words with a wave. What's there to look after? A house is merely walls. The vital element is business. Unfortunately, Lena isn't involved in that. A woman's role is to prepare meals, not to manage millions. The laughter intensified, growing more audacious. Lena felt herself wilting, but the realization that Victor not only failed to appreciate her, but actively sought to humiliate her in front of everyone was unbearable. She silently served the guests, offering gravy, wine, and appetizers, striving to conceal her pain. Each chuckle, each dismissive remark from Victor struck her heart like a sharp shard of glass. She felt like a servant, not a wife, not an equal partner. Her mother-in-law, Galina Petrovna, presiding at the head of the table, added fuel to the fire. "Victor is a good man," she declared haughtily. "He achieved everything himself. Lena is fortunate he tolerates her." Lena felt a stinging sensation in her eyes. Could she truly be so insignificant? She had once harbored dreams of a career, of personal fulfillment. Yet for Victor's sake, this was her recompense: contempt and degradation. Suddenly, a thought, sharp as lightning, struck her. Enough. A surge of anger and resolve coursed through her. She straightened her posture, lifted her chin, and met Victor's gaze directly. Victor noticed the shift in her demeanor for a fleeting moment. This look was unfamiliar and unsettling. Lena surveyed the assembled company. On most faces, curiosity was evident, perhaps even a hint of schadenfreude. They anticipated her justification, but they were mistaken. Lena had no intention of doing so. She advanced to the center of the table and lifted a champagne flute. Silence descended, all eyes fixated upon her. Victor swallowed nervously, a premonition of impending trouble unsettling him. Galina Petrovna frowned, displeased by Lena's disruption of the celebratory flow. Lena raised her glass. "I wish to propose a toast," she stated, her voice resonating through the room with unwavering firmness. The timidity and uncertainty of moments prior had vanished. "Dear guests," she began calmly, her voice now possessing a steely quality, "I am grateful to all of you for gracing us today to share this significant occasion with Victor." A quiet cough echoed. Lena observed Victor relax slightly, anticipating the customary flattery, but she had no intention of meeting his expectations. Today, much has been spoken about Victor's achievements, his talent, and his successes, and this is indeed true. Victor is a gifted individual and has accomplished a great deal. She paused. A success story typically comprises several chapters, and not all are penned with triumphant ink. Silence once again enveloped the hall. Victor frowned, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. His mother tensed. "Allow me to recount a few of those chapters of our lives that often remain unacknowledged," Lena continued. "About those years when a thriving business was merely a distant aspiration, when all we possessed were dreams and a considerable debt. Many of you know Victor as a visionary leader, a man with foresight and a knack for profitable ventures. However, few are aware that it all began with a modest enterprise that we established together." She glanced at the guests, many of whom appeared surprised. Victor flushed, attempting to interject, but Lena raised her hand, halting him. "Allow me to finish, Victor. I believe this is important." She turned back to the guests. "At that time, our only assets were enthusiasm and the unwavering conviction that we could succeed." Victor was brimming with ideas, but as is often the case, He lacked the financial acumen and experience. And you know who assisted him with the accounting, tax regulations, and legal intricacies? I did. Yes, I deferred my own ambitions, my career aspirations, to help Victor build his enterprise. I toiled day and night, sparing no effort or time. I negotiated with suppliers, drafted business plans, and sought investors. And do you know who persuaded Mr. Petrov to grant us our initial substantial loan? I did, because I understood how to approach him, how to convince him of our repayment capability. Victor sat stunned, utterly blindsided by this turn of events. His meticulously crafted image of a successful businessman began to disintegrate before his eyes. Yes, I manage the household and raise our children, Lena continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. But this does not imply I was merely an appendage to Victor. I was his confidant, his ally, his steadfast support, and I am proud to have contributed to his success. She paused for breath. A profound silence fell upon the hall, so absolute that the ticking of a clock was audible. But you know what the most intriguing aspect is? Lena inquired, a subtle inflection of irony entering her voice. All these years, while I managed the home and supported Victor, I never ceased learning and developing. I worked part-time, translated texts, penned articles, and provided consultations. I did this not for financial gain, but to maintain my own identity, to stay sharp, and to have an avenue of escape should things take a downturn. Several individuals in the room gasped. Victor sprang from his seat, his face contorted with rage. "Lena, why can't you just be content? Was that not enough for a thief?" Andre, who had always held Lena in high regard, interjected. "With all due respect, Lena," he stated loudly, ensuring everyone could hear, "I've always recognized your exceptional talent and intelligence." He rose from his seat and approached Lena. "I have an offer for you," he said, meeting her gaze directly. "I'm currently launching a new venture and require a reliable partner. I am confident you possess the capabilities for this undertaking. Lena, I propose that you become my business partner." Lena stood frozen, astonished by his words. That she had always known Andre valued her, but she had never envisioned such a proposition. Victor attempted to speak, but Andre silenced him with a gesture. "This is Lena's decision," he declared, "and I believe she deserves an opportunity to prove herself." Lena looked from Andre to Victor, then back to Andre. Her eyes conveyed a mixture of apprehension, hope, and determination. "Andre," she finally said, "I accept your offer." A lump formed in Lena's throat. She looked at Victor, his face a mask of fury and humiliation. He had lost all semblance of dignity, respect, and most crucially, her admiration. Lena raised her glass. "To a new beginning," she declared, draining it in one gulp. Victor attempted a forced laugh, but the sound was pathetic, like a mouse's squeak in a vast, empty hall. "Well, Lenotchka," he managed, attempting a tone of playful dismissal, "what sort of fanciful tales are these at this hour? You know, I do tend to embellish things. Everyone does, really, folks." He glanced around at the assembled guests, but no response came. The silence was oppressive, so thick one could almost hear the condensation trickling down the champagne bottles. Suddenly, Mikhail Petrovich, an old friend and business associate of Victor's, rose from his seat at the far end of the table. He always appeared somber and taciturn. In his eyes, Lena detected a flicker of empathy. "Actually, Lena is quite right," Mikhail Petrovich stated slowly, his voice resonating clearly in the palpable silence. "I recall those early days. You nearly went bankrupt with that first endeavor. Had it not been for Lena's resourcefulness and her connections, you'd likely be in a far less opulent residence than this one, Victor." Victor seemed struck as if by a physical blow. "You're speaking nonsense, Misha. Did she pay you for this?" Mikhail Petrovich shook his head. "No one paid me. One must simply call a spade a spade. Lena is an intelligent woman, and you've always known that." He then turned to the guests, his voice rising. "Why are you all looking at her like that? She's merely a homemaker. What does she know of business? She stayed home making soup, and now she fancies herself a heroine." Lena regarded him calmly, almost with pity. In his eyes she saw not only anger, but also a palpable fear, the fear of exposure, the fear of losing control. "Vitya," she said softly, "I never intended to humiliate you. I simply wanted you and everyone else present to understand the truth. I was never merely a homemaker. I was always your partner, your anchor, but you failed to recognize it. You chose to perceive me as a mere shadow, an accessory to your success." She paused, took a deep breath, and continued, her gaze fixed directly on Victor. "But you know the irony of it all. You were always fearful I would surpass you, yet in reality, you propelled me to this point. You forced me to seek independence, to cultivate strength. You believed you controlled me, but I—" Victor stood there, utterly dumbfounded. He couldn't comprehend Lena uttering these words. He had always viewed her as weak and dependent, yet here she stood, emanating dignity and fortitude. "You know what, Vitya?" Lena smiled, but there was no warmth or forgiveness in that smile. I'm leaving. Feel free to call me again." Without another word, and devoid of admiration, she departed from the table. Victor attempted to halt her, but his feet seemed rooted to the floor. He watched Lena leave, exiting his home, his life. In that instant, he realized he was losing far more than just his wife. She was shedding a part of herself, a piece of her history. In the silence, thick with awkwardness and disappointment, the pretense had crumbled, and the truth Lena had long concealed finally erupted. At that moment, Andre approached Lena. "Lena," he said softly, "I understand you have pressing matters, but my offer remains open. I genuinely believe in you and your potential." Lena met Andre's gaze and saw sincerity and support reflected there. For the first time in many years, she offered a genuine smile. "Thank you, Andre," she replied. He extended his hand, and Lena grasped it with firm resolve. In that instant, she felt she had found not only a new professional path, but also a true friend, a man who recognized her not merely as a homemaker, but as an intelligent, capable, and strong individual. The evening continued, but for Lena, it had concluded. She left Victor to confront the repercussions of his actions, embarking on a new chapter of her life, one where she would be her own mistress, charting her own destiny. She hailed a taxi and provided the address of her old friend Svetlana, needing a sanctuary to spend the night and contemplate her future endeavors. Svetlana was astonished by Lena's account, but offered no judgment, instead lending her full support and assistance. They conversed late into the night, discussing future plans. Svetlana invited Lena to stay with her until she found alternative accommodation. The following morning, Lena awoke with a sense of purpose, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. Her first act was to contact Andre and propose an immediate meeting to discuss the project's details. Subsequently, Lena contacted her lawyer, instructing him to initiate divorce proceedings, eager to finalize the past and commence her new life. She also made a stop at the bank to withdraw all her savings, intending to utilize this capital as the foundation for her fresh start. The meeting with Andre proved highly productive. He outlined his new venture, and Lena was captivated by his concept. They immediately commenced work, Lena focusing on developing a comprehensive business plan and marketing strategy, while Andre managed procurement and logistics. They dedicated themselves to their task, working tirelessly, fueled by enthusiasm and a shared belief in their impending success. Within months, Lena and Andre's enterprise began to flourish. They expanded their operations to new cities, rapidly gaining recognition and establishing themselves as successful entrepreneurs. Meanwhile, Victor's life took a downward spiral following the public humiliation at his anniversary celebration. Many of his acquaintances and business partners distanced themselves, their trust eroded. His business faltered, leading to significant financial losses and a decline in his reputation. He found himself isolated, and even his mother's perspective shifted. Galina Petrovna realized she had underestimated Lena and regretted her past treatment. One day, Galina Petrovna visited Lena and implored her forgiveness. Lena granted it, harboring no resentment towards anyone. Lena had transformed into a prosperous and self-sufficient woman, having discovered her true calling and her own brand of happiness. She had proven her capabilities to all, acquiring a new apartment in the city center, indulging in world travel, and dedicating herself to charitable causes. Most importantly, however, she had cultivated self-assurance and self-respect, learning to value and love herself.